For years, country music star Keith Urban and Hollywood icon Nicole Kidman were seen as the definition of love, resilience, and redemption. From their red carpet appearances to their tender public moments, the world believed they had defied the odds of celebrity marriage. But behind the glittering smiles and heartfelt songs lay something far more fragile than anyone imagined. And now, at long last, Keith Urban has finally broken his silence, revealing the truth about his marriage, his struggles, and what truly went wrong. Their romance was one that seemed destined for the storybooks. A rising country star who had overcome addiction, and an Academy Award-winning actress who had already endured one of Hollywood's most public divorces with Tom Cruise. Together, they promised each other peace, love, and stability. But as Keith now admits, fame doesn't shield anyone from pain. It only magnifies it. In a heartfelt and emotional revelation, Keith opened up about the moments that nearly destroyed everything, his inner demons, the toll of his career, and the pressures of being married to one of the world's most recognizable women. He also shared the one thing Nicole did that forever changed the course of his life. As the world listens to Keith's confession, fans are left questioning everything they thought they knew about the couple's perfect relationship. Was it all an illusion, or was it love struggling to survive under unbearable pressure? Let's uncover what Keith Urban finally revealed about his divorce from Nicole Kidman, and the painful truth that has left everyone speechless. When Keith Urban and Nicole Kidman first met in 2005 at the G-Day USA event in Los Angeles, it felt like the universe had finally aligned two souls destined to find each other. Both were global stars, both were Australian, and both were carrying invisible wounds from their pasts. For Nicole, it was the shadow of her painful and very public divorce from Tom Cruise. For Keith, it was the ongoing battle with addiction and the constant fear that his demons might destroy everything he loved. From the very beginning, their chemistry was undeniable. Nicole later revealed that she felt an instant peace when she met Keith, a rare calm that told her he might be the one. Keith described Nicole as a light in a dark time, saying her presence grounded him when he was spiraling. Within months, the pair had grown inseparable, their connection deepening beyond Hollywood glamour. By June 2006, they were married in a stunning ceremony in Sydney, surrounded by family, close friends, and fellow stars. Fans around the world rejoiced, seeing their love story as a true fairy tale. Nicole, radiant in her gown, called Keith her rock, while Keith wrote songs that hinted at how deeply he adored her. But what the public didn't know was that this fairy tale already had cracks beneath the surface. Just 4 months after their wedding, Keith checked himself into rehab for substance abuse, a decision that shocked fans and nearly ended their marriage before it truly began. Nicole, who had endured heartbreak before, was now faced with another test of loyalty and strength. Yet instead of walking away, she chose to fight. Reports at the time suggested she wrote him letters every day and visited whenever she could, refusing to let him fall apart. Keith later said in interviews that her support saved his life. "She stood by me when I couldn't stand by myself," he confessed. For a while, it seemed like love had conquered everything. Keith emerged from rehab renewed and grateful, and Nicole found joy in building a family with him. They welcomed their daughters, Sunday and Faith, and appeared to have found balance. But behind closed doors, fame and distance continued to test them. Keith's touring schedule and Nicole's film commitments often kept them apart for weeks, sometimes months. The very careers that had made them who they were also threatened to tear them apart. Sources close to the couple claimed that Nicole often felt lonely while Keith was on the road, and Keith struggled with guilt for not being there more. Though they smiled for cameras and appeared at red carpets arm in arm, the truth was far less picture-perfect. The emotional distance began to show in subtle ways: missed calls, short visits, and growing silences that neither of them knew how to fill. Still, they both tried to hold on. Keith once said, "Marriage is not about perfection. It's about forgiveness and endurance." And for years, that's exactly what they practiced: endurance. But endurance without healing can only go so far. As time went on, Cracks that were once small began to widen. Rumors of tension, disagreements, and long periods apart began to circulate. Yet neither Keith nor Nicole ever confirmed anything, choosing instead to protect their privacy. But Keith's music began to reveal what words could not. Lyrics about regret, distance, and lost connection painted a picture of a man struggling to hold on to something he loved but feared losing. Their marriage, once celebrated as one of Hollywood's most enduring love stories, was quietly becoming a story of heartbreak, misunderstanding, and emotional exhaustion. Keith later reflected, "You can love someone more than anything in the world, but if you don't love yourself, that love will never be enough." Those words would come to define not just his personal journey, but also the tragic turning point in a relationship that began with magic and slowly unraveled under the weight of fame and fragility. As Keith Urban and Nicole Kidman's marriage moved past its early years, the couple seemed to have found their rhythm, at least from the outside looking in. But fame has a cruel way of amplifying everything, the highs, the lows, and the spaces in between. And for Keith and Nicole, the pressures of their careers began to carve emotional distance between them that love alone could not heal. Nicole, always the consummate professional, continued to deliver powerful performances in films like Australia and Rabbit Hole. Her dedication to her craft was unmatched, but it came with a cost. Long months away from home, late nights on set, and the ever-present scrutiny of the public eye. Meanwhile, Keith's life was a whirlwind of tours, concerts, and endless travel. His music career was thriving. His albums were topping charts and fans adored his every note. Yet, when the lights dimmed and the crowd faded, Keith often found himself returning to empty hotel rooms, far from the warmth of his wife and children. He once admitted in an interview that fame can be a beautiful curse. The applause and success brought validation, but they also built a wall between him and the simple life he craved. And while he battled the temptation to relapse, Nicole was fighting a different kind of loneliness, one that comes when the person you love most is physically there, but emotionally far away. Insiders close to the couple described those years as a cycle of reunion and separation. Whenever they reunited, they would seem deeply in love, holding hands at award shows, whispering to each other at red carpets, and posting loving tributes. But soon after, work would pull them apart again. Over time, that rhythm became exhausting. "It's like living two lives," one friend of the couple remarked. One is the public's favorite couple, and another where they're just trying to remember who they were to each other before all the noise. Keith's emotional strain began to seep into his music. Songs like Blue Ain't Your Color and The Fighter reflected vulnerability and longing, often interpreted by fans as glimpses into his marriage. The lyrics hinted at a man trying to reassure his partner while wrestling with his own insecurities. Nicole, on the other hand, appeared more private than ever, deflecting personal questions during interviews and maintaining a calm, graceful image. But those who knew her said she was struggling. "Nicole has always been strong," one insider shared, "but she's also deeply emotional." The distance was hard on her. Adding to their challenges were constant tabloid rumors. Reports claimed Keith's touring life led to trust issues, while others speculated that Nicole's career resurgence created friction at home. Though the couple publicly denied these claims, Keith later admitted that fame makes it impossible to live a quiet life. Every argument, every misunderstanding, became fodder for speculation. Yet amid the chaos, there were still moments of love and light. Keith often spoke of how Nicole was his anchor, the one who kept him grounded when fame threatened to sweep him away. "She believes in me more than I believe in myself," he once said. Nicole, too, expressed that Keith's openness and affection made her feel truly seen. But love, no matter how strong, needs peace to survive, and peace was something they rarely found. By the late 2010s, fans began to notice subtle changes. The couple appeared together less frequently, and their social media interactions became sparse. Behind the scenes, sources claimed that the emotional distance had grown too large to ignore. Both were tired of the travel, the attention, and the constant act of appearing perfect. Still, neither Keith nor Nicole wanted to give up easily. "We've both walked through fire," Keith once said, "and I think that's why we've held on as long as we have." But even as he said it, there was a sadness in his tone, as though he already knew that the storm ahead might be too strong to weather. The silence between them was no longer peaceful. It was heavy, lingering, and filled with words neither had the courage to say. Every love story has a moment when words stop working. For Keith Urban and Nicole Kidman, that moment arrived quietly, without scandal, without shouting, just a slow unraveling of something once unshakable. What began as two people vowing to stand by each other through every storm had turned into two souls, growing apart in the calm that followed. The cameras still caught their smiles, but those close to them could tell. The light had dimmed. Keith's music had always been a window into his heart. And around this time, his songs started to sound more like confessions than love letters. Tracks like Parallel Line and We Were Carried, a melancholy honesty that fans couldn't ignore. "When you pour your heart into a song," Keith said in one interview, "sometimes you're trying to say something to someone you love, but can't find the words in person." Those lyrics spoke of regret, of time lost, and of realizing too late how fragile love truly is. Nicole, on the other hand, sought refuge in her work. As she took on darker, emotionally demanding roles, it was as if she was using her performances to process what she couldn't say out loud. Her portrayal of wounded, complex women on screen began to mirror her real life more than she may have intended. "I use pain as fuel," she once said, a statement that now feels haunting in retrospect. Their friends noticed the tension long before the public did. One insider described their relationship as two kind people who just stopped, understanding each other. The love was still there, so was the respect, but the connection that had once been effortless now felt strained. Small disagreements turned into long silences. Words that once comforted began to wound. And as both tried to protect each other from more pain, they built invisible walls that grew higher with each passing day. In private, Keith reportedly struggled with guilt. He had fought hard to overcome addiction and rebuild his career, but now he felt as though he was losing the one person he'd fought hardest to keep. "You think you can fix everything with love," he told a close friend. "But sometimes love isn't the cure, it's the lesson." Nicole, meanwhile, was said to be heartbroken but determined to maintain grace. She had always valued privacy, and she didn't want the world to witness her pain. When Keith was asked in an interview about how they managed their marriage amid constant challenges, his answer was telling. "We've been through a lot," he said softly. "But at the end of the day, I think love means knowing when to hold on and when to let go." Fans didn't realize it then, but those words marked the beginning of an emotional shift that would soon become impossible to ignore. As months went by, public appearances grew fewer. Nicole attended events alone. Keith toured more than ever. Rumors of separation began to swirl again, but this time neither of them denied it. Their silence spoke volumes. Insiders later revealed that both Keith and Nicole had agreed to take time apart to focus on healing individually. For Keith, that meant returning to the studio to process his emotions through music. For Nicole, it meant spending quiet days with her daughters, reflecting on what went wrong and whether love could truly survive fame. In one of his most revealing interviews, Keith said, "Sometimes the hardest part about love is watching it fade. Not because you stopped caring, but because life just got louder than your hearts could handle." Those words, raw and honest, resonated deeply with fans who had admired their relationship for nearly 2 decades. The fairy tale that once gave people hope was fading, not in flames of betrayal or scandal, but in the soft ache of two people who gave everything they could and finally realized that even the strongest love stories can reach their final verse. When Keith Urban finally broke his silence, the world leaned in to listen. After months of speculation, whispers, and emotional songs that hinted at heartbreak, he decided to speak from the heart, not as a celebrity, not as a performer, but as a man who had lived through love, loss, and everything in between, sitting in a quiet studio, surrounded by guitars and memories of melodies born from pain. Keith opened up about what truly happened between him and Nicole Kidman. His voice was steady, but his eyes carried the weight of years spent balancing fame, addiction, love, and regret. "I'll always love Nicole," he began softly. "That's not something that disappears just because life changes. We went through things that most people will never understand." He admitted that the greatest challenge wasn't the fame or the distance or even the rumors. It was the constant pressure to appear perfect. "When the world sees you as this golden couple," he explained, "you start performing for them instead of living for each other. You forget that real love isn't about the image. It's about the small, quiet moments that no one ever sees." Keith spoke about how Nicole's strength and compassion shaped him. "She believed in me when I didn't believe in myself," he said. "When I was at my lowest, she stood there. Not because she had to, but because that's who she is. A giver. A fighter." He paused before adding, "Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone you love is to let them go find peace, even if that peace isn't with you." His words struck a chord with millions of fans. The confession wasn't filled with bitterness or blame. It was layered with gratitude, humility, and acceptance. Keith made it clear that there were no villains in their story. There was only the reality of two people who loved each other deeply, but had grown in different directions. He reflected on how fame can distort love, turning intimacy into performance. "When you're on stage every night and she's on set across the world, you start to live parallel lives," he said. "You still love each other, but you stop sharing the same moments. And one day, you wake up and realize you've been living next to each other, not with each other." Despite the heartbreak, Keith emphasized that there was no anger left, only appreciation. He credited Nicole for helping him become a better man, a better father, and even a better musician. "I wouldn't be who I am today without her," he said. "She taught me about discipline, patience, and forgiveness. Those lessons will stay with me forever." In the weeks following his emotional interview, fans flooded social media with messages of support, praising Keith for his vulnerability. Many said his honesty gave them the courage to reflect on their own relationships, on how love can be beautiful and painful at the same time, and how sometimes walking away doesn't mean failure, but freedom. Keith later released a song inspired by his revelations, a hauntingly beautiful ballad about letting go with grace. Listeners couldn't help but feel it was his final love letter to Nicole. One lyric stood out. "You were the calm after every storm, but even calm seas drift apart. I'll love you always. In silence, from afar." As for Nicole, she never publicly responded to Keith's interview. But those close to her said she was proud of his honesty and grateful for the way he handled their story, with dignity and respect. In a rare comment months later, she simply said, "Love never ends. It just changes form." Today, Keith continues to perform, channeling his past into his art, while Nicole focuses on her family and film projects. Though their paths may have diverged, their connection remains, not as husband and wife, but as two souls who shared something rare and unforgettable. In the end, Keith Urban's truth wasn't about heartbreak or blame. It was about understanding that love, in all its beauty and pain, leaves a mark that time can't erase. And maybe that's the most human truth of all.